How are you, everybody? Kevin Iole here. You know, the first time I went to Tijuana, Mexico, somebody told me before I ever got there, they said some of the toughest people on earth are from Tijuana. And as Exhibit A, I present my guest right now, the former UFC flyweight champ, Brandon Moreno. Is that a myth, Brandon, or is that true? The toughest are from Tijuana.
Man, the people are the judge. I can say nothing. Okay.
Well, I only know for sure. I only know three people from Tijuana. You, Eric Morales, a boxing Hall of Famer, and Jaime Munguia. So I think right there, three for three. Right,
Tough people, very tough
so
people. I know.
no, they are badass, no doubt. You were fighting Steve Astro Boy Erceg in the main event of UFC Mexico City on Saturday. Interesting matchup for you. It's almost like a no win for you. He's ranked number 8. He's coming off back-to-back losses, right? But he's a tough guy. How do you approach this fight with Erceg, knowing all the baggage that's hanging out there?
Yeah, I mean, I understand your point. Like he's under the ranking, um, under than me in the ranking. But at the same time, I think it's a good opportunity to be active, and it's a good opportunity to keep showing the promotion. I deserve the opportunity for the title in the future, right? I mean, one of the options was like just wait, sit in my chair and see what happened in the future. But man, that is not my style. That
Right.
is not my style. Even when I tried to take a break last year, I spent just like 9 months. So I love to be active. I love to fight. They offer me Steve Erceg in Mexico City, and definitely I say yes. I think for the styles, it's gonna be a very interesting fight.
Yeah, I think he's a fun fighter, and he certainly did very good against Pantoja. Lost the fight against Pantoja for the title, but could have actually won that. But I want to go back to your fight in November in Edmonton against Amir Albazi because I thought we saw a little bit different Brandon Moreno in that fight. Like a little, maybe that time off had made some impact on you. Looking back on that fight, like, do you feel like you were a different fighter going into the Albazi fight than you had been, say, to the Royval fight before that?
Kevin, I don't know if it's a new fighter, but at least it's a renovated fighter. A more fresh fighter. If I can explain it like that. Like that little break gave me time with my family, gave me time for myself. And miss a little bit the sport because I was like on track all these years, since 2020, fighting for titles, fighting main events, co-main events. So man, a lot of responsibility. So I take a little break, and I show to the world in my last performance against Amir Albazi that was enough for me, to finally be ready to fight again and show to the world I can still be the champion in the future.
I want to ask you something that maybe is a little bit off the wall, but I think you're in a good position to answer this. I see a little bit of parallel between you and Alex Pereira from this standpoint, right? You, for a long time, from the pandemic, you were fighting very often. You were fighting all the tough guys, and you were kind of carrying a lot of those promotions. Alex Pereira, Conor McGregor breaks a toe. Alex Pereira's in Australia, flies to Las Vegas with 2 broken toes and takes the fight. And he did all that. Now he's coming off a loss and he has to try to come back and kind of put himself back together. I'm sure you can relate to that because you've been there. When you look at a guy like that and you see him coming off a loss to Ankalaev, how do you think a guy of that stature kind of gets himself back on the horse and turns things around?
Yes. I mean, he was trying to build his career and his legacy. He was trying to build something I don't know, for him, for himself. And he made it. He did it. Before this last fight against Ankalaev, last year he was the fighter of the year, for example. So he
Right.
was taking the opportunities. He was taking the opportunities. In some point, that maybe that was enough. So I think the final answer can be just answered for Alex Pereira in this case. But talking about myself, I need and I had to take that little break last year to reconnect with myself and just take a new breath.
And it seemed like in the fight too, like the reason I said I thought the break did you good was like you built on each round. Like you were good in the first round, but you were better in the second. And I thought you were better in the fifth than you had been in any of the other rounds. Like what was the difference from that standpoint? Was it just, the fact that you were hungry again?
Yes, so that, I was hungry again, and at the same time, I was able to finally use my experience. Like a lot of people talk about, oh, Brandon Moreno has so many experience, too much experience because he's been fighting a lot of fights, a lot of important moments in his career. But I felt a little bit frustrated because I wasn't able to show that experience in my fights. Even winning, I felt like
Hmm.
I can do more. So finally, everything connect. All the cables connect in that fight against Amir, and I was able to show that.
I thought your best, from a guy that's seen most of your fights, I thought your best performance you ever had was UFC 283 against Figueiredo, right? Where you stop him, you really dominated him. How did you feel? Or did you feel like you did better against Albazi?
Oof, I mean, it's because like against Amir Albazi, I had more time to show my striking skills. Against Figueiredo in the UFC 283, I show everything. I show my grappling, I show my jiu-jitsu, my striking. I think both performances are great, just in a different way.
Sure. No, I thought you were great in both of them, no doubt. So let's talk about this because this is probably just one of those statistical oddities. But you fought three times in Mexico in the UFC, and your record is 0-2-1 for a guy that's a multi-time world champion, one of the top fighters in the world. Is it just how do you reconcile the fact that you haven't won in Mexico in the UFC?
I mean, it's something that I wanna put in my career, in my legacy. But at the same time, I put a lot of focus this training camp to don't think about the past.
Hmm.
I imagine like it's a lot of responsibility already, so it's a lot of pressure and stress, but I can't put more. So I stopped thinking in the past. I mean, I try to learn. I try to get experience from those moments, but with that being said, like I'm just trying to take this moment, take the fight against Steve Erceg, make the plan, make everything, and just be ready for this new challenge, and think maybe in the title after that. But anyway, right now I'm very focused on the present.
I know I asked you about this before, but the sport is really growing. You saw the fight card at the Sphere and the Dana White's love letter to Mexico and everything. And I remember when you walked out at the Honda Center in Anaheim in that crowd. Like I said, this Mexican fan base is like really into the sport because when Brandon Moreno walked out, it was like that was one of the loudest ovations I ever heard. And I wonder when you walk out on Saturday, will you be thinking, hey, I helped build this, like this, I'm one of the key guys that built this, in Mexico where the people are going nuts for you guys in there?
Oof, like I'm just trying to be very humble about it. Uh, but at the same time, one of my goals and one of my purpose in life is to help others, to get their to achieve their dreams. So I love the idea to be part of the history of the mixed martial arts in my country, in Mexico City, in Mexico. So if I can keep doing that in the future, if I can keep giving a platform to the new generation to show their skills to the world, it's gonna be a pleasure to me. And I will for sure.